Well, we're gonna get started, and we always like to start the same way. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We really do appreciate it. My name's Erin Haywood, and I'm a proud co-founder of One Temple Fitness, and we're excited to have you today. So we're gonna get started. So we're gonna start with our agenda. We're gonna start with, we always like to start with an icebreaker to break the ice, to get everybody comfortable and get us grounded in our material today. And that's going to be a self-love assessment. Then we're going to reflect on why self-love is so important. Then we're going to be talking about finding our sources for self-love, and then how we can build that back up if it's kind of been tarnished or tampered with. And then we're going to be talking a lot about discovering God's love and why that's important. And then we're going to close out. So for some who have come before, you've probably heard this speech before around what One Temple Fitness is, but we also like to start with, like, who are we? Who are these people bringing this workshop to you? So our work is definitely grounded in this scripture, which is 1 Corinthians 3, verses 16 through 17, which says, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy that person. For God's temple is sacred, and you together are that temple," right? So our vision for our work is to maintain the mind, body, and spirit through engaging monthly conversations and workouts. This is achieved by stimulating the mind, strengthening the body, and stretching the spirit. So what is self-love? Well, according to dictionary.com, self-love is defined as the instinct by which one's actions are directed to the promotion of one's welfare or well-being. And when I was reading this definition, the two words that kind of stood out to me were promotion and well-being. And so the definition of promotion is an activity that supports or provides active encouragement for the furtherance of an aim, right? And then for well-being, that's a state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy. So it's encouragement, an active encouragement, and then well-being is that comfortable, healthy, and happy. So we're going to be talking a little bit more, but this is the time that we're going to have y'all do the self-assessment. So on the worksheet, the first part says introduction. And so the way it's going to work is that there's different statements. And so there's a key there to kind of help you guide you along. But A will stand for always, meaning that you always feel this way. S stands for sometimes, and then N is never. So I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes to read each statement and kind of circle which one you feel best works for you. Any questions on what we're doing? Cool. Go ahead. And for those who are following along on Zoom, the worksheet can be found on our website, which is www.7fire8.com. Just click on One Temple Fitness and then click on Documents. And there's a password which should have been sent to you. And if you have any questions or concerns, just let us know, but you can follow along with us. Just so you know, there's one statement on the second. So just make sure you flip to the second page to make sure you have all the statements. For one more minute. And so as individuals are kind of finishing up, one of the things that is said on the worksheet is around how self-love definitely can be impacted if we're not filling our cups. That can be seen in our work, our relationships, how others see us, our interactions with our family, right? And I really love this picture of the two cats. And I'm not sure if you can see it as well, but there's one cat who looks in the mirror and it just kind of sees him or herself as really small, versus the other cat who looks in the mirror and sees a tiger, right? So imagine those that one individual in the workspace versus the other individual in the workspace, how their interactions with people and how they get their work done might be different, right? Cool. So we're gonna get to our self-assessments in just a second, but first we want to talk about finding the source. And before we can love others, we have to learn how to love ourselves first. It's that whole concept that a lot of people talk about is we have this cup, right? And that we need to fill our cups up and have them overflow so that it can be poured onto others, versus if we're constantly giving to others and our cup is empty, right? We have nothing left for ourselves. So we have to learn how to love ourselves, give to ourselves. But we also have to recognize that life's trials and tribulations can harden our hearts and hinder us from accessing joy, peace, and wholeness, right? And that's not just about, oh, I have this wall around my heart because I'm not going to let any others, come in and access my heart. That can also be about you're actually hindering yourself from loving yourself too. So what we want to do is first get into that first reflection question, which I think is on the second page, which is, did you see any trends? So now looking at your responses, did you see any trends with your assessment? Were there certain ones that you're like, wow, I circled a lot of one of the keywords here, sometimes, never, or always? So does anyone want to start off with some trends or things that they've noticed with their self-assessment? Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that.
I'm trying to still figure out what
Okay. So definitely seeing that there's some times on it and you're still trying to figure it out. Anybody else? You have a lot of symptoms too. Mm-hmm. So how is it filling out the assessment? Where there's certain ones where you're like, I don't know how to, score myself on this, how to answer it. Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes I do that.
Mm. No, you had something? No?
Yeah. Sometimes it never.
And so for those that are on Zoom, what's being talked about is the statement around, I recognize my unique talents and gifts, and how some individuals had a hard time kind of rating always or never, but it was right there in the middle with sometimes. And some things that we have to recognize is that, life's a spectrum, and that experiences happen and we encounter different things that make this might be a harder grader for ourselves, or we might be a little bit lax on how we grade ourselves. So also keep that in mind too, because I know for me, I'm always like, I'm super humble. So I'm always like, but there's opportunities, there's life to always grow. So I don't want to always put always on it. And that's my mindset. So it's just also thinking about where that source comes from.
Okay. What I noticed is that the higher and deeper I go in God, some of these things have shifted. So I'm pretty much stable, the same confident person. I see my abilities, all that. But the first one said, how I feel about myself depends on what others think of me. I would always put never, but the more, I'm still a very blunt, stern person, but the more I get God's love on my heart, if I care about somebody, how they feel actually affects me. So before somebody can say oh, I don't like this, and I'd be like, I don't care. You genuinely don't care. Now part of me does care, and that can be good and bad, because even people you love, you can't get too wrapped up in what they think about you, because that could be damaging. So, so it's good to be more open to people, but you also have to be mindful. So, so yeah, that's one thing I noticed.
Right. Obi, do you have anything to add?
I wish I had something to add, but I couldn't download the document, so I really don't really have much to say on the topic right now.
Okay, thank you. All right. So with that, keep this in mind. But the other reflection question is, has your self-love been impacted by your trials and tribulations? So we've already talked about kind of just life experiences and how that impacts how we view ourselves, how we view others, how we engage spaces and people. But also thinking about, has there been something that maybe has gotten us to a place where we're a little bit worried or cautious about maybe allowing ourselves to love ourselves or to love others fully? So what I want you to do is, we're in tables, just talk with a partner or partners about this question. And you can also talk a little bit more about the trends that you saw in your questions. So go ahead and talk with a partner. That's like thinking about yourself. Okay. So we're gonna come back together, and we're gonna start with this table. Who would like to share out about what you talked about?
I'll share.
Yeah, sure.
So we talked about how our trials and tribulations affect us, and basically came to the conclusion that we're really heavily affected by them, and so a lot of the times we don't know how to handle our emotions and feelings, or basically different trials of work, relationships, etc. And how it's in that, like, it's sometimes like logically in your head, it's a matter of perspective, and what kind of attitude you're going to have when you're dealing with these trials, and that probably stems from how much self-love and confidence you have, but because it affects kind of navigate that and know our sense of self and how we see ourselves. Really kind of discussing on how to improve that. Definitely running sober after trials and tribulations.
You have a lot of really good nuggets there, because you're basically talking about, we're in life. We're always going to have trials and tribulations. There's always going to be challenges in our life, but it's so important to know that it's a process. And like, kind of think about having like a tool belt on, and how there's different things you can equip yourself to help you with every single situation. And so I really love how you mentioned that it's a mindset at first, right? You get kind of like attacked with things that are outside of, sometimes you feel like out of your control, but then you have to kind of talk yourself through it and say, is this in my control? How do I feel about it? You kind of process it. And then the next step is, okay, well, what's in my tool belt that's actually like a solution or an alternate way of thinking about or being things. So we're going to talk about what we can put there. So you said a lot, so I can't wait to listen to it again. What about table 2? Thank you for sharing.
And so we talked about how maybe receiving like the type of emotional needs, like higher levels, or one specifically, like, for example, if it's a child or something that's happened to somebody that I love. I loved myself, and I was too wrapped up around myself, and I loved if somebody did something to me, and I found myself more like this person.
Thank you. And I know that we were kind of talking too about, if you look at the statements on the worksheets, they kind of stem from 3 kind of buckets. One of how you view yourself, how you allow others to impact you, and the other one is actually time and investment, right? So Thank you to everyone who shared, and we're going to now kind of hopefully talk about some solutions or ways to approach it. So when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, self-love, how does it work? And I really thought of that there's really 3 energy sources that can tap into self-love. 1 is God, 2 is self, and 3 is others or other things. What I mean by other things is sometimes we put expectations or goals, and that we feel like those things can fulfill us and make us feel good. So whether that's the expectation of money, fame, things like that. So for God, when we allow for God to fill us up, to define our love for ourselves, that's everlasting, that's filling, right? But with self, when we boost ourselves up, a lot of times we coin self-love as like, I'm getting my nails done, I'm gonna go get a massage, or like, I'm gonna watch Netflix and eat some ice cream, self-love day. But it has to be deeper than that. Definitely that stuff is good, but it has to be deeper than that, because we really have to know ourselves and do work with ourselves to know why we're worthy. And I think that stems from, once again, from God, right? And so, yes, that love is good, but sometimes that can be temporary because we're flawed, right? Sometimes our negative thoughts about ourselves or the situations can get in the way of us fully loving ourselves. Sometimes we let others get in that way. So that's why that love is important, but it doesn't last, right? It can just be this temporary feeling where we're like, oh, we're back in this situation, I have to kind of cheerleader myself in. Do you want to add something?
I was just going to add to note that there's a difference between self-love and self-care. And self-care are the examples that Aaron was giving, that self-care leads to self-love, but a lot of people need self-care but don't have that self-love for themselves. So just understanding that the first step to self-love is self-care. You have to go through.
And then, thank you, that's a big point. And then the third one is others and other things. And what I mean by superficial is that it's surface, right? Always, and anytime that you're giving advice to somebody who's going maybe through some love issues, you get that advice where it's like, they don't complain, right? It's true. Others can only love you by what you show them and what you give them, and also about their capacity to love, right? So for that, it can only be surface level, right? So we have to allow for these other 2, God and self, to come first before we can really let others fill us up. So quick reflection question is, how is your self-love filled? So thinking about that, do you allow for God to fill you up? Do you allow you to fill yourself up? Or do you allow for other things? And thinking about those everlasting, temporary, and superficial. So hold on to that, because I want us to get into the different types, but think about that while we're going through the next slide. So thinking about God's love, right? Because who doesn't want everlasting and fulfilling love? What does God say about it? So we're going to use 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7, which says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of words. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So that's what God says about love. So there's different types of love. And so this is important because we want to definitely think about how we express and receive love. So the first one is storge, and that's the love between Christians, which is a deep family affection, but mostly people know this is the love that we feel with family, right? So naturally, our parents and children would express it through this way. And this is also found in the Bible. Then there's phileo, which is the love that we have for friends. And this is really tied, it's an emotional connection. It's the investment that you spend with others that you call friends, a deep friendship, right? Then there's agape, which is known as God's love, right? And it's the greatest love because what it does and how it feels. But when I was researching this and listening to a guy talk about this, he really hit it on the head when he said that this is defined by action. It can be felt, but it's also defined by action because God loves us with our flaws, right? he encourages us to love our enemies. And it's basically seen by action, right? You don't necessarily have to love everyone, but you have to show God's love to people, right? So just keep that in mind. And then there's eros, which is the Greek word for sexual love or passionate love. And this is not seen in the Bible. But this one, kind of tying it back to that other slide, is that temporary? Is that everlasting, right? Is that superficial? So when we're thinking about these different types, also think about that previous slide around what source is this coming from? Is this a source that's going to be temporary for me? Is this going to be a source that's going to be everlasting? Is this a superficial source? And obviously when we come and we're talking about passionate love, right, or sexual love, we can see that as something that could be temporary unless that's shared with somebody that we're in commitment with marriage with, right? So for a reflection, which type of love do you express often? So we're gonna pause there. The previous reflection question kind of goes along with this one around what fuels you, right, your love. So I want you to take some time with your table groups to talk about those two questions. And I'm gonna go back because I know there's empty spaces for the types of love, so you can kind of fill in the worksheet, okay? And then for those who are following along, you should have access to the worksheet online. So once again, if you're wanting to follow along, you can now go to our website, which is www.7fire8.com. Just click on the One Temple Fitness tab, and then the bottom of that drop-down menu should be Documents. So go ahead and click on that, and you should have access to the worksheet. Welcome.
Yeah. Start over. And then I feel like if you do that after
So there's probably for me, just only one person in our lives.
What's the web? So this is our treatment month, the video online. So if you have time, follow along with the video. Now you can choose from the workshop.
so I need to get better.
Violence has started the assessment, so that you can have a foundation for how you read yourself. This was from last month.
Yeah. Like I feel like
Oh.
so like
It's not like
So I think what we were saying
Yeah. I know, I'm really interested in your whole life.
and then learn how to work to fuel, like keep going against God. So connect with your house.
It's a trial. It's not necessarily. But you're
So we're gonna give you about 1 more minute, and then we're gonna start having a discussion because we're already talking a lot. So it's awesome.
She's not gonna wait for
A breakthrough.
It's a break. It's a break now.
Usually a breakthrough happens.
That is so true. That is so true. When that's
Like the bottom.
it is so hard to actually. It's the easiest thing to say, the one hard to say. Yeah.
I'm not perfect, but I touched down.
That would seem like a break on your hair and stuff.
Okay, so we're gonna come together, and I'm gonna go back to the sources. We'll start there. So just to go over it, because I know that we have new folks in the room. So we were talking a lot about self-love and how love can be impacted by trials and tribulations that we go through in life, but that we have to also recognize that love can be fueled by 3 sources. We talked about how it can be fueled by God and how that source is everlasting and fulfilling, that it can be fueled by ourselves. And Jamel made this huge point where a lot of times self-love is used interchangeably with self-care, where we say, oh, I love myself, I'm gonna get my hair done, I'm gonna get my nails done, I'm gonna go to the movies, I'm gonna do this and that, which is good because sometimes those things de-stress us and make us feel good. But what Jamel was really talking about is that that's the first step to self-love, because you can do those things and not really love yourself, right? So those things can be temporary because we're flawed, right? There's times where we're like, I feel really good this day, and the next day you could be like back at square 0, right? So it's all about how our flaws sometimes get in the way of it being everlasting and fulfilling, which is what God can do for us. And then the others and other things meaning that sometimes we put expectations or earthly things to fill us up, whether that's fame, money, things like that. Those things can be superficial, meaning like surface, right? Because we only know ourselves because we go to sleep with ourselves, we wake up, we feed ourselves, we're with ourselves 24 hours. And that's, other people can only love us from what we give to them and what they see, but also their capacity. I think that's the biggest one I want to repeat, because I know that what I mean by capacity is, I'll share like a testimony. So I used to have really high expectations with my relationship with my father. And I remember talking to my mentor, and I was telling her about these issues that I was having. And she basically said, you have to love people where they're at, for who they are. And then that's just a place that you start with. And then you build that relationship and it can grow. So meaning love people with the capacity that they have. Because sometimes we want them to love us more, and that might be all that they can give at that point in time. So that's a huge breakthrough. It's a huge breakthrough. I feel like there's a lot going on over here. Was that a huge breakthrough? So let's start there. So how does your self-love feel? Let's start here, because I feel like there's a lot. So what have y'all been talking about, thinking about this fuel source?
Like what you just said is pretty much like a big, I guess, theme that I have in our time. But basically I was sharing with Louie about how we, it's like a lot of times in my relationships with people and like family and whatnot, it's basically like, I love you, but I don't have to. So it's, I think the constant struggle that I have with self-love is because I'm like, you're that love for these people around me that I care for, but then they say, you know, I don't have time. So then it's like, then does that mean you really love me then? Because you don't have time, then, you know, but then this is coming from people who are really close, so it's just like, oh, what does that mean? And then, but then you mentioned this whole like capacity. Like, does that mean like how I perceive their, you know, capacity of love? Like, is it me being selfish then of like wanting to have more, not thinking that's enough, or is just accepting like that is their love and I believe it? Or like it comes into this whole like trust and like all that.
I'm gonna pause you because you're saying a lot, and I know that there's kind of some side conversations going on. So repeat it one more time about this whole concept of like you wanting time and affection from people that you put a lot of that you care about a lot. That they say, I don't have time. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah.
And can we all give our attention?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that so like basically when someone says they love you and they say they don't have time, then like I struggle with well, does that really mean you love me when you can't really invest that much time? But then that could be like just that was their best at that time, but like I'm not perceiving it that way because perhaps like maybe I'm selfish because I'm thinking like, oh, well, I don't trust it, or maybe it's just not enough for me in my head, or maybe I'm just too desperate for it. Like there's something where a lot of these kind of interactions like confuse me because that's what I'm used to at the same time. But then that's like, I don't know.
No, so I was about to help you. So then connecting that back to the source,
Right.
what source do you feel that's connected to? So the story you just shared, which one do you feel like that energy source is?
That's the other, like basically relying on that, like I guess I'm very vulnerable to and dependent on what other people are telling me about whether they love me or not, and then I'm basing my self-worth on how much of a love, approval I get from closest people around me, and that is probably not the healthiest, because then when they're facing their trials and tribulations and they're gone, then I'm stuck going, well, nobody loves me, and then flying in the wind like a leaf, going crazy. So that's kind of the struggle I honestly have.
And thank you for sharing, because we're not going to give you like this magic wand thing, that we just want to open up a space for us to think about things, because that's not going to be a process, because one of the types of love is family love. So it is important, but that whole concept of, are we putting our worth, our expectations on receiving love from other people, right? So definitely, thank you. I relate. I'm right there with you. Any other thoughts on types of love, sources of love, and how we engage in that? What about the support here?
I think it's like what I shared before, like I'm in the similar mode. But I think my self-love is like how well I do it. So not necessarily if they reciprocated back to that, but it's just like how well do I get great. And then not use, I was like, that's but still superficial. And then I get on my high
And then we get into self, right? It's that temporary, right? Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to get back to this word capacity. But any other thoughts? Yes.
When you finally reach the place where you have God's love, which is fulfilling and everlasting, you come from that place of wanting or needing from other people. If they give it, it's okay. If they don't, it's okay too, because you're still giving. And I think that comes with growth. I'm a little older than everybody is, so that comes with growth. And because I was the type of person that I never got any compliments or anything, and so I pulled toward people that gave them, because I thought it was love to me. And so in that way, even though you're still wrong. But as I have grown, I've been through all those stages, self-love, superficial, but now I focus on God's love and God's love being fulfilled in me, and I in return share that with others. And so I don't look for you to give me. If you do, I'm okay. But if you don't, I'm still okay.
Which is what I was talking about. Like when you walk with God, He stretches you so that way you can love yourself more, but you can love others more. Because I know for me, I was very judgmental, and that would block me from giving love to somebody or receiving love from someone. So also thinking about when our source is God, He'll stretch us and He'll push us to be like, I'm gonna put it on your spirit that you need to go help that person, you know, or I'm gonna put it on your spirit that you need to go and this is where you need to grow and you need to mature. And then in the end, the gift was self-love for yourself. So, or pray for that person.
You don't like it.
right? Yes, thank you for sharing. That's right on point. So then thinking about that, let's go back to the types of love. So the reflection question was, which love do you feel that you demonstrate or share the most? And then we'll get into the second one, which we'll close out. But thinking about the difference. So there's the one that we feel when we share with family, the ones that we share with friends, and then God's love, and then the sexual love or passionate love. Which one do we feel like we get often? I want to be friendly to our folks that are online. Obi, are you still with us? Obi?
Yeah, still here.
Okay. Just thinking about everything that we talked about, anything that you want to share with the group that you feel like maybe was an aha moment, or things that you're like, oh, I had that experience, or anything you want to share?
I could definitely answer the question, what types of love
Sure.
I expressed often. I definitely feel like the family love is definitely there. Really close to my brothers and mom and pops, grandma. So kind of experience that on a daily basis. Friendship love, filio. I feel like I share that with coworkers, with my girlfriend, and just really close friends, whether it be in the streets, at home. And agape is only something I can strive for. So, and I feel like I understand it more and more every day as I get more into the scripture. But I feel like that's going to be a journey. So,
And do you feel, I have a follow-up, do you feel like different times in your life that maybe there was an order with how these types of love were? Meaning like, at one point in time, it was all about my friends. At one point in time, it was all about my girlfriends, you know, or at one point in time, it was all about my family. Do you feel like that it was always these three categories of love, or just your life experiences, these are your three top?
I feel like they're always been a part of my life. I definitely feel like the agape can be up and down with the trials and tribulations of life, but it's more so my own human understanding. So that's why I feel like it's going to be a journey to truly understand that. Something I can always, try to strive for, but I feel like I've always been founded in family and friends, and that's something that has always kind of helped me stabilize.
I think the last thing I heard you, because your sound was kind of going out, was that
Oh,
it helps you stabilize.
right, exactly. Through all the rough parts, especially when it comes to asking for advice or hearing like a scripture or getting referred to read something, which kind of brings me back in balance when I start to try to rely on my own power.
Thank you. I kind of want to open up that question to the group around thinking about where you've gone and where you come from. Do you feel like it's always been consistent, your types of love? You want to share? I hate seeing that you were shaking your head.
No, I think when you're younger, you basically go with the impulse and the male.
Mm-hmm.
When you get older, and Christian storage, because you're around your Christian friends all the time. And as you get older, I think you kind of keep talking to that down.
Mm. Anybody else feel like through time your love has been expressed in different ways, and maybe you prioritize love in different ways? I know for me at one point it was friends. It was friends. They validated everything. I would ask them. I felt like the way that they expressed love to me was really, really important. But through times, right, seasons and friends come in and out. I had to lean on something that was a little bit more deeply rooted, which is agape love, right? Anything over here? Louis, what do you think?
I definitely relate to the friend one, because I think growing up, I moved around a ton. So having to constantly adapt to new places, especially when you're young, it's like you instantly, the only people that I mean, you need to persuade to be your friend, or like the new people you meet all the time. And then I moved to California for school by myself. I have no family or anything here, so it was like building my network, building my family here. It was all friends, and then I moved abroad, and so when I was overseas, it's like the only people I'm going to be able to depend on are like friends. So, but then all of those are stages that you eventually meet. So you really have to be connected to something a little bit deeper, because friendships come and go. And so, so then I think, I think that's probably where it's, it fluctuates so much.
I think like on depending on stage of life with you, if I feel like right now, sometimes I would be there, some of the stage too much. Like we're like this really like kind of focus on that, forget that I have these other types of love. But I'm looking for that to kind of validate me or increase my self-worth. And I think it's just sometimes it's depending on the stage, when you're in. So this is the age, like, to me, they're like getting married, having kids, all of that. And so, like, I'm like, what turned out? But I think, like you said, what does keep me, and I think I expressed Phileo like a lot, but what does keep me is the back. I'm trying to walk away, but that brings me back to reality.
And to piggyback off of Keisha, I feel the same way. Because I got saved so early in life, I have fluctuated, but agape has always been my foundation, because I would try those other loves, and then when they would fail me, I'm like, let me just go with something that hasn't failed me yet. And so I feel like agape has always been there. Sometimes it was second or third, but I know that that's my foundation.
And so the second reflection question is, which type of love would you like to express more and why? So in your groups, or you can write down their space in your worksheet, some open space. Really think about everything that we talked about today, the sources of where we get our love from, God, self, and others. Thinking about the different types of love, which one would you like to express more and why? So just take a couple of minutes, reflect independently, and then when you're ready, you can share with folks at the table, and then we'll share it as a group. I'm going to try something. But I feel that means something else. Also, you only have the answer to that.
I love my relationship with God. It's me just always having an internal. So using that as, trying to use it as like a compass in life. I need to grow. I need to do more of
really says talking that. Two is, for me, this is from my own experience. Where it's that when two are together, that's where the foundation churches, like, common purpose, which is trying to discover that is your first relationship. So also think about exploring things, maybe I'm saying, this is what I've tried this far, what have I not tried? And just be like, church hasn't been my thing. I was in church one time, see where the spirit kind of leads you. And I used to go out with them. So it's finding the one that get something out of.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting thing, like last year, my mom got LA for her birthday, and she swam like she was kind of in church.
She went to that
Yeah, and it worked because I was like, well, let me get on the Google and figure out which one to go to. And there's one in my neighborhood that's like a really big Catholic church. And I took her there, and she loved it. And then I actually continued to go by myself, but I wasn't like, oh hey, Mom, like if I've been going to church. But it's
That's gonna be your plan of action.
I think that might need to be. Seriously, because I was going like,
They have so many services.
oh yeah, because they're only 40 minutes.
You can actually go.
I think that's horrible.
And that's the start of it. Sometimes you can go and have like, okay, I'm here, but then the question is, did you get it right? And that's always going, like, go somewhere where you're going to be scared of that. I was funny in Minnesota, I moved from California, and I go to Missouri somewhere, and go to an AA church. I don't care if you're not denominational, I just want to make sure that I'm being fed. And that is the most important part. Do I feel the Holy Spirit in the church? You know? Like, I never want to just go through motion. Like, when church day, you have to check. That was my dream.
Right. I know.
I'm like, did I walk away with something that made me think about something? Go and be a better person.
Yeah.
Just start exploring.
But I just think about that church. I just
I'll get it on it. That one Okay, we're gonna come back together as a group. Okay. So the reflection question was, which type of love would you like to express more and why? Who would like to go first? Okay, Louie's gonna go. So let's give our attention to Louie.
So I was saying that I would like to express agape love more. I don't know how, but
Come next month. That's part two.
yeah, just, and I think what really stuck with me is what you said. You don't have to love everyone, but you need to show God's love to everyone. And I think like keeping that in mind, along with finding a home to go to, and taking something from that, and then maybe internalizing it and then giving it out to people is one way that it's a process, but.
And so why? Why is that?
Or you may not have the answer tonight, but it's just something to ponder.
I think it's because it's just what I am rooted in, what I think it's just I think it's like the baseline of like where my family operates. operates from, and not that I operate from there, but because I know it's familiar, it's something that I'd like to try to express more.
Just to repeat, the importance of discovering how we can discover God's love is a process of, being open to trying new things, then also reflecting on, have there been spaces where I have experienced agape love, and then maybe reconnecting with people, reconnecting with places, and also being vulnerable and saying like, hey, I want to explore things. Do you have a church that I might want to go to, or can you talk to me about your walk? So thank you. It's about vulnerability and being open. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? We're family. Come on.
Video? Yeah. Because I just find that I'm not as open to like family and friends and things like that. I kind of really like to be by myself. And so I just think I should focus on that more. I'm more rooted in agape love because that's how I was brought up. I was brought up to love yourself and love God, you love others, but to have like be open to other people loving me is kind of harder for me to do because I've seen so much. So I want to know how to open up to people and actually receive it.
Anyone else?
We talked about our I was sharing I want to just expressing stories where more people feel like kind of like happy because I am engaged in the topic, but then like I just do my thing. Like I'm serving God, I'm doing ministry, I'm thinking about other people I'm doing my life, and I forget for me when it was a family, like I forget that like needs me and what's needs to be around me. So like, I want to express that. Other part of that, like how we can merge the two. Like they're not separate. God's taken us together. We can't say about them. That we shared earlier. Like I think like
Anybody else want to share? Okay. Thank you so much for being open to this space. Self-love is actually a very vulnerable topic because it's very close to us. Love in general is a very vulnerable topic because it is something that innately we want and that we're supposed to express. Yesterday I went to this conference, and it was just to share a quick story, and we were in this workshop, and this woman was talking about how she leads parent workshops for parents. And she says, I teach parents how to hug their kids. And she says, and I asked parents, when's the last time that you hugged your child and told them that you love them, right? And she said that sometimes parents in those spaces would say, not since 5th grade, And so at that moment, not to get too emotional, but it was like a deep moment. This young boy talked about how he was a foster youth and how he gets his hugs from his counselors, his mentors, his friends, and how like when he actually gets hugged, he feels it like in his spirit. And in that moment, as he was sharing, a man stood up, came and hugged him. And like the whole room was crying. I'm about to cry right now. But it's true. It's like love is something that we're supposed to express and receive, And God really teaches us how to do that, like in a real way. So I just wanted to end with that. So thank you so much for participating. This is just the beginning because this is a big topic. So we're going to continue talking about self-love, but really thinking about how God is that source, but also how to rebuild, because we talked a lot about how things outside of our reach has kind of impacted us, our life situations, our trials, our tribulations, sometimes impacts us giving and receiving love. So we want to kind of also talk about some strategies for that. So if you want to come back, which we encourage you to do, you can find out more information about our programs. We do once a month meetups or discussions in our first Friday of the month from 7 to 9 here at Walker Temple AME Church. And then we do group workouts. So and those are every third Saturday, and the time fluctuates, but it's at Del Rey Lagoon Park, which is in Marina Del Rey. So yes, and the beginners, let me say that again, and the beginners is every third Saturday from 8 to 9, 10-ish here upstairs. So once again, this is all funneled through our belief that there's a connection between mind, body, and spirit. So we want to fill each of those. So like us on our Instagram and follow us on Facebook. And for our daily inspiration, you can follow both Jamel and I at, Jamel is at @_F1R3. And then for exercise challenges, you can follow me at FitGirlLife_23. Thank you so